And on today's episode of Showbiz India, we're welcoming a very special guest, Apeksha Agarwal, who's a world-renowned fashion and beauty photographer who has worked with the likes of Preeti Zinta, Alaya Furniturewala, and many more celebrities in Bollywood and Hollywood. Welcome to Showbiz India, Apeksha.
Thank you. Thanks, Trishta, for having me.
What made you get into photography?
Well, I've been taking photographs for a very long time, about, I don't know, 11, 12 years of my life. I went in the UK and I did my entire BA honors in business management. At the age of 21, I moved back to India from the UK and I pursued sales. So I was doing sales with my dad for about 2.5, 3 years. And I remember going back to my dad's cabin and I was like, Dad, I think I want to leave. And he's like, okay, so what are you going to do? And the first thing that came to my mind was, I was like, I think I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to pursue photography. And that's what I'm going to do. I remember him looking at me and saying, my father couldn't afford it, so I couldn't do it, but yours can, so you should go and do it. And that just stuck by me forever. And 2016, I moved to New York to do my diploma in photography.
What you described to me kind of sounds like a struggle that a lot of creatives in India have, especially younger people who want to get into photography or acting or any sort of artistic field. What advice would you give those young people now?
I think, people are just generally scared of following their passion because, when it comes to art, you have to wake up, you have to hustle every single day. You don't, there's going to be months that you're going to go without getting paid. There's going to be months that are going to be really, really good. You just have to wake up every day like it's a new day and hustle. And that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years that I've been in photography. But the one thing that's really, really helped me is my entire family, my brother, my parents have been extremely supportive of whatever it is that I've wanted to do. They've obviously helped me with financial backing when I haven't had enough money to pay my rent. They've been my biggest advocates. Everybody that I've worked with in New York and LA went back to India for a year. Everybody that I worked with there, they've just supported me. So I think every day that you wake up, just create and create and create.
You're an Indian who has come to America and pursued photography.
Yeah.
So, being in America, have you noticed some issues with diversity in the playing field for models and photographers? And what do you do to address those issues?
I have to say, it's always been really, really smooth for me. Maybe for two reasons. A, I'm a girl, and B, I'm also a person of color, which is why, and in the last few years, all of this stuff has been coming up, and I've seen this with my other fellow photographers who are males. And if I reach out to the same model and they reach out to the same model, I will definitely get a response over they would. And I've noticed that in general because models are more comfortable shooting with female photographers, just more comfortable shooting with a team that is, that has more of a female crew than it does male. So I don't think I've had any sort of negative experiences. It's worked in my favor.
I've noticed that in a lot of the pictures that you photograph, you have a tendency to also include a really diverse array of models. Was that conscious or was it just, you grew up seeing that, so it made sense to make it that way?
I think it's both. I grew up seeing it because my parents sent me to boarding school when I was 15 years old. So I grew up in Delhi and then I moved to boarding school when I was 15. While I was in boarding school, we moved to Mumbai. So now my entire family lives in Mumbai. While they've been in Mumbai, I moved to the UK. Right after that, I moved to Mumbai, came to New York, went to LA, moved back to India. So I've been all over in the last a little over a decade. I've just met a lot of different people and I've studied with a lot of different people. We used to have, I remember very specifically, we used to have the diversity balls in the UK. I have friends across the globe from every single background. When I work on concepts for my photography, editorials or any projects that I'm working on, I definitely cast in a way that I see a vision with.
I noticed that on your website, you have a Lost and Found in Mumbai section. Can you talk a little bit about that project and what motivated you to go for it?
It has, I have to say, this project has been the turning point in my career. I've been photographing fashion and beauty for the last 5 years. And up until I did this project, I I was recognized, yes, but this project definitely has taken the likes of a lot of people in galleries and exhibitions across the globe. So I was doing my master's at SVA, School of Visual Arts in New York last year, and in March, I remember COVID hit New York. We went into lockdown, and my school decided to shut. Like every other school, we all decided to shut down. And the next thing I know, I was on a flight back to Mumbai, March 12th, the next morning, and I was in Bombay like March 13th. Now I got there and I still have to finish my master's. And I was doing a thesis on the evolution of beauty and beauty standards from 1920 to 2020 as part of my thesis. I went back, lost access to a studio, models, hair, makeup, just people in general. And so my teachers are like, what are you going to shoot now? And I don't know. And I sat at home. I didn't know what to shoot. March 22nd, India went into a lockdown. My dad looks at me and he says, I think you should go photograph this. The one photo that became the hero photo of this project, it's three nuns crossing the street outside the VT station. It just got picked up. And that was the first photo that I shot on my camera that day of lockdown. And the more I started shooting, I just kept shooting and shooting and shooting. And I would have class from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. every day. And then I would sleep in the morning for a couple of hours. And then I would go out and shoot for 5-6 hours and then come back. And I did that for 4 months. And I would just sit and edit. And I remember taking, I think by the end of 4 months, I had 4,000 or 5,000 photographs for this project. The first time I exhibited this was under the Brooklyn Bridge as part of Photoville. And I came back to New York, and suddenly everybody in America started picking up this project, from galleries in SF to Vietnam to Melbourne to everywhere. I've now exhibited, I think I've had 18 or 19 exhibitions. And last night I had my first solo exhibit on this project.
What did it mean for you to shoot this project, being from India and seeing, your country go into this lockdown and seeing the way how people's lives were disrupted, and how did you reflect that in your photography?
So I think the most obvious way that I've reflected this is, a lot of people ask me why I decided to shoot this in black and white. And I remember saying this to everybody, including last night when people came for my exhibit. I said the reason I shot this in black and white is because that's how I was feeling. I didn't feel any color in my life when I was there. I had suddenly been picked out of New York and put into Mumbai overnight. I was misplaced. I was doing synchronized classes overnight. My sleep cycle was all over the place. And, everybody was in this like uncertain, format. And when I started shooting this, I saw Bombay in a whole different light.
So how would you say your photography has evolved over the years?
Obviously, technically, it definitely has evolved. Conceptually as well, because I remember, so one big change that's come in my photography is, what I would do back in the day is I would shoot and then I would think of what I've shot. But now I think of what I want to shoot first. So I come up with a concept and I conceptualize. I also apply a lot of what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, what the world's going through, or anything or anyone around me is going through in my photography now.
Do you have anything coming up that you'd like to share with us?
So I don't have anything on the slate per se, but there's a lot of people that have been asking me, because this was the first time that I did anything that was documentary or street or journalistic driven. They want me to combine my fashion eye and this eye with color or black and white and explore something that hasn't been explored by me or anybody else. So I'm definitely working on something. I have a concept that I've thought about. I have a small team that I've spoken to about it, but it's still in a very, very early stage to talk about it.
Thanks so much, Apeksha. It was great having you.
Thanks, Trishta. Thank you for having me.